Stern, who created the intelligence quotient for population extermination reasons. He was later rejected and put out of Hitler's camp, but the IQ is an invention of Nazi Germany. Now, the first IQ test ever used in the world comes out of France. A European named Alfred Binet, at the request of the French government, was asked to design a test whereby the French government could group or track the students based on how bright they were and identify those who they felt would not be successful in school at all. A white man from New Jersey, Henry H. Goddard, who was a member of the American Eugenics Society, went to France, got a copy of the Binet scales, first white IQ test, brought the Binet scales back to America, made copies of it, and distributed it across the country to white folks everywhere. And Henry H. Goddard himself said that with this tool, we will be able to accomplish our eugenicidal ends. So from the beginning, the IQ test was never meant as an objective standard to see how smart black kids was. It was used to justify access to opportunity and extermination and racial control.
And they're not being taught. I have a boy, Hassan, he's 10, and I took him to school, and he was at the genius level because I had taught him at home. You know, he was like 7 years old, he had an IQ of 153. Well, they made sure they dumbed him down, and 2 years later, he was barely passing. I had to take him, I said, and I fought with him every day.
They snatched it. It's like when our children in school are saying that, you know, when somebody's real smart, they say, oh, you acting white. They don't understand that people that look like them invented thinking. In fact, we were thinking before Europeans were even on the planet. Yet we don't know this about ourselves. And because our children are not familiar with this history of themselves, they can't see themselves because they're taught that slaves came from Africa. And so therefore, I'm going to act like a slave because that's who I am. But they don't see themselves as Imhotep, or they don't see themselves as Queen Nzinga, or Preshet, a second dynasty female doctor, or they don't see themselves as Hypatia, a great mathematician and medical doctor that was skinned alive by the Romans because they did not want to show an African woman being so intelligent, and dragged her through the community to show people what they were going to do to this African woman.
The African man and the African woman's mind does not operate along European paradigmal structures. So if you're teaching him one way, he's going to automatically fail. If the system is structured for him to fail, of course he's going to fail. He's going to say, see, I told you. That's ridiculous. We know that genius is definitely and always has been in the African mind, because everywhere you go on the planet, you see African genius once left to its own accord. But when manipulated, you could turn him or that genius in her into something that is demonic. Back in 1964, they created a whole other way of teaching your son. It was called outcome-based education. It wasn't about you learning math and knowing what math was. 1 and 1 equals 2. 2 was the answer. If you got 3, you were wrong. But today, if 1 and 1 and you said 3, you said, oh, you tried. It's all right. We'll pass you on. That's all right. You did your best. See, so what they did was, in outcome-based education, it became more feminized. It became more of a communal participation in the act or idea of learning, not learning. If you could come together and participate in group things, that showed that you had the ability to be passed on into the new society. If you were a rogue and you jumped out and said, no, I ain't going for this, which is where all the gangs started coming from, because most of the males could not deal in an education system that was like this. And this is why you see most of the females getting the PhDs today, because the system was structured in such a way that took away the challenge that men needed.
And it was through the IQ test, which is the #1 weapon of special education, they continue to overdiagnose and misdiagnose black children as being mentally retarded who are not. I had a case in Philadelphia this past summer right here. Some white lawyers asked me to come in and participate in the case. Black boy, 8th grade, diagnosed as mentally retarded. I evaluated the brother, found out he was never mentally retarded. But when I looked into the previous IQ tests that were given, they misinterpreted the data. So this young man been walking around with a diagnosis of mental retardation since he was in 8th grade. He's now a young adult, and although he's been told by me and his parents that you are not retarded and you were never retarded, the self-esteem, the self-concept, the self-image is so crushed, this brother probably gonna need therapy for the next 20 years because he bought into what? A superficial label that white society has given them. The gifted movement really started to take form right after the Brown versus Board of Education decision in 1954. The Supreme Court said you could no longer use race as a factor to segregate groups, but they didn't say you couldn't use disability or ability. So the white folks said, guess what? We're gonna come up with a gifted program. We're gonna segregate the white kids from the black kids after Brown versus Board because we're gonna say the white kids are too smart. It's not based on skin, it's based on ability. Problem with that, it didn't work too well because a lot of white kids didn't score high on the IQ test. So they said, guess what? This is working for some white kids, but it ain't working for all. So guess what? In 1963, the same year that the Civil Rights Bill was introduced, a Chicago psychologist created the learning disability. The learning disability. And it is through the IQ test and the learning disability that so many of our children are marshaled into special ed kids where they'll probably never learn to read on grade level by the time they graduate.
Do you see, it's like if I took an animal and put it in a cage and so the animal couldn't grow well. And then I'll say, oh, look at this deformed animal. Do you see? I don't say, I made this creature deformed because of the conditions that I subjected him or her to. And the very fact that, in other words, the logic, in my view, if you felt that blacks were genetically, inherently inferior, you can give them the very best of conditions and they would not be able to perform or function. Do you see? But the need to deprive, at the same time that people are saying, oh, it's cold outside, make sure your dog is in. Make sure your dog gets all the nutrients for growth and development because you're not fearful that the dog is going to take over the human beings. Do you see? But once you start depriving, systematic deprivation, it means, well, I must be afraid of these people maybe overtaking me if I allow them the same conditions, opportunities that I set forth for myself.
The problem of the 21st century in America is what are we going to do with these 40 million Africans who we do not want here? That is the #1 political domestic issue in America. Why? Because AIDS is killing them, but it ain't killing them fast enough. The police are killing them, but they ain't killing them fast enough. The prisons, we are throwing them in there by the dozens every day. But guess what? They still having babies, okay? We're killing the babies on the delivery table, but it ain't getting rid of them fast enough. I was at a meeting last night with a group of parents who have children who are not being successful in high school. And at that meeting, there was a school member who said that she felt in the meeting we were spending too much time discussing the problems and that we hadn't begun to generate the solutions. And I told her that I disagreed with her. And I explained to her why. I said one of the biggest problems we have as African people is that we are too quick to rush out and fix something you know nothing about. If the engine in my car is broke, and I'm not a mechanic, okay? And if I rush out to the car store and buy all types of fancy gadgets to get my engine running again, and I go up under that engine, okay, I can end up wasting those resources, wasting time, wasting my money, and if I'm not careful, I could probably get killed under that hood not knowing what I'm doing. I got to be patient. I got to get that manual. I got to read through it. I got to study that system so once I get under that hood, I know exactly what to do when and where. Problem with black folk is nobody is patient enough to investigate the problem fully to make sure we understand it so when we go out to fix it, we don't lose any lives unnecessarily, any resources unnecessarily, any time or money unnecessarily.
Black people have to understand, I had to say first stage, we're not going any place until we understand what we're dealing with. And this is the weakness of our position now. You know, people want to talk about a black agenda with no understanding, no in-depth understanding of what they're dealing with, or being afraid to talk about racism, white supremacy as a total system dynamic. So that's step one, to understand what the game is all about. Step two is, I say, the self-respect factor. See, I have to respect myself at a sufficient level to want to push back the force that is attempting to destroy me. I can't want to integrate with it.
We don't have a think tank. What is something I call a dark matter think tank. These Europeans got think tanks all over the place, and that's how they always are 20 steps ahead of us, because nobody is thinking and strategizing. We're just reacting, and that's why they're keeping us the way we are. We're reactors. You see, we are not supposed to be reactors. We are supposed to be actors, not reactors. We act upon things based upon a consensus thought. When we come together and we know the strategy, it's because all of the greater thinkers came together and threshed out this plan, and we knew all of where it's going to fail, where it's not going to fail, how it's going to work, where it will work, where it will not work, and we move from that. We don't have that.
That power is the ability to define someone's reality and have that person accept that definition as if it were their own. And we have allowed people to define us as to who we are and what we can do. And we have accepted that as if we thought that ourselves.
So they don't want us to know how great we are, because that's the missing link. If we really knew how great the potential that we have, and that's really all we have left. We have nothing left but our potential. And whenever that potential is able to get free, then we go to the top. They don't keep you out because you're the worst. They keep us out because we are the very best.
If we go back to the 1980s, if you remember, there was a lot of focus around whether or not black men had a gene that predisposed them to violence. What's making black men kill other black men? Nobody said anything about slavery, the after effects, self-hate, miseducation, economic castration. Because I can tell you that miseducation and economic castration, that is the lack of jobs, is the mother and father of violence. If you don't educate me properly and you keep me from making a decent livelihood for me and my children, I have no choice but to go to the underworld to feed my family. And in the underworld, I'm likely to come face to face with somebody else who's trying to feed their family at my family's expense. It breeds the violence. And even if you're not selling drugs, the fact that you're walking around knowing as a man that you can provide for you and yours, which is a natural responsibility, it breeds the anger that we sooner or later let off on one another. And whenever you read a story about a black man killing another black man, they never give you the contextual relevance of what happened. You coming out of the store, I'm walking in the store. I bump you accidentally, you turn around and you kill me. On the surface, I just look like a crazy, angry black man. Nobody's gonna tell you I got fired from a job yesterday for standing up to somebody who called me out my name. Nobody's gonna tell you that I've been putting in job applications for 2 years consistently, and as soon as they find out that I've been to prison, they drop me from the job. They don't put it in context. 75% of the violence that's taking place out there by black people is economically based, and nobody's dealing with it. Half the black men in Philadelphia, unemployed. Half the black men in Baltimore, unemployed. Half the black men in New York City, unemployed. But you don't want to tie that to the rise in violence? Everybody knows when there's never enough jobs in society, violence goes up, even amongst white folk. This is what sociologists study. This is the science of criminology. No jobs, violence. More jobs, less violence. You know this. But when it comes to black people, we don't want to put it in context, because we are trying to do what? Exterminate the image. We're trying to get people to see black people as an unnecessary hindrance to the progress of humanity.
If you end up with a critical mass of non-white people, all of whom, all over the planet, who have been oppressed by racism, white supremacy, if they begin to understand the white motivation, you see, so they're no longer acting in a way that allows white supremacy to be maintained. Like black people, as long as we're killing each other, destroying ourselves, you see, or say if you're learning, you're acting white, and so we don't want to do that. These are all dysfunctional behaviors. If we begin to really understand racism, white supremacy, what it is, how it works. It's not a question of, hating white people. That's a waste of energy and a waste of time, but we would no longer be behaving in a way that makes white supremacy comfortable to exist.
So we keep talking about, our mantra for over 75 years has been, we gotta have unity. We gotta have unity. No, we don't. We don't have to have unity with each other. We just need to get the same idea. And the other thing is that our educators can't decide on what is the history. That's a problem. If you get 10 of them in here in a room, all 10 of them will have a lot of differences about where the civilization started, what we did, who did it, and where. Okay? White people agree on their history, even if it's a lie, they agree on it. Patrick Henry, they agree on that, Marco Polo, whoever it is, they agree. Yep, that's what he did. Yep, that's what they did. They don't have an argument about what the truth is. They just came together, decided on what the history is going to be, and then that's what they accepted, and that's what they teach their children, and that's what they teach our children.
And now instead of Ku Klux Klan, who do we have? We have the Tea Party. Because the Tea Party are the children of the immigrants that were brought here for those jobs. But as long as they did their jobs, it was all right. But now what are they doing? They are now outsourcing the jobs to India and to China, to South America. And now who's losing their jobs? Who's losing their homes? It's those poor, huddled masses that were brought here to Ellis Island. It's in-source, outsource. And peoples of European descent never realized what the real problem was, because they were ignorant enough to believe that it was black folk. White folk are in worse position because even black folk that got the job in McDonald's, got the job as custodians, they have a job now. It's those other ones that were given those middle management positions that have lost their jobs, lost their homes, lost their car, lost their way. Quite frankly, from what I'm hearing them say, they done lost their minds.
And so we have men who don't have the discipline to withstand the onslaught of the sexual energy that our women now carry. Most of our women don't get along with a black man unless he laying down. Once y'all stand up, we going back to fighting, but we get along with you in the bed. And I tell them, I say, we have to learn how to get along with our man more than just in the bed. And there has never been a civilization where the children grew up to be successful when the man and the woman were at odds with each other, like the black man and black woman in America, okay? The fact that we can't get along is demonstrative by the situation, the condition of our children, especially our daughters. Our sons are acting like daughters, okay? They're not gay, they just have the feminine emotional mechanism because they've been around too many women, they've been raised by women and heard so much negative things about a black man, about being a black father.
Food, clothing, and shelter. Until you get food, clothing, and shelter, you will never get the attention of the masses. What made Marcus Garvey so successful? What made the Honorable Elijah Muhammad so successful? What made the Black Panther Party so successful? Now you're looking at 3 different ideologies. Mr. Garvey's Pan-Africanism, Elijah Muhammad's black religious nationalism, the black socialism of the Black Panther Party. Ideologically, they were different, but all 3 of them did one thing: provided for food, clothing, shelter, jobs, education, medical care. Every last one of those institutions attempted to build some sort of an independent functioning community with services. We ain't doing that today. We ain't doing that today. And that's why we don't have their attention. They say, why does the church continue to control black people when all they do is sell Jesus and collect money? Why? Because the church does have some services. It ain't sufficient, but they got more than the conscious organizations. The problem with the conscious organizations is all we do is run our damn mouth, but nobody's building. You follow me? We got 1,000,001 books at the bookstore. We got a book for every problem, but the problems are still here. See, we have been content with the information. The information is not enough. It is information plus action.
That our schools teach our children the truth, okay? And we could do that because we pay for the schools. Public education is not free in that way. We pay for it every day. Every time we pay taxes, every time we purchase things, every time we buy insurance, whatever it is, we're supporting all these things. And we have more say-so there, but it's difficult to get us to come out to the schools. And the frustration of having children who are out of control is so high that the mothers are glad to send the child off to school and try to give that responsibility to somebody else. instead of us taking that responsibility on ourselves.
Because of the educational system, we are taught not to trust. And some people want to say it's the Willie Lynch syndrome. You know what I mean? Some people say that. But it's the trust factor with us. We don't look at each other as family anymore because we have been Europeanized, a lot of us, or Westernized.
This gives us the impetus to be able to claim who we are as a people. And for us now to go into our schools and teach our children, because if we don't teach them this, look, if I were them, I wouldn't teach this. I'm telling you straight up right now. I would not teach African children to have power over themselves. If they have power over themselves, they don't have to ask you for a job. They don't have to depend on you for a job. They'll make their job.
Black businesses are very important because the African American people, black people in America are taught to just have good jobs, go to school and get a good job. Black people in America are not taught to start black businesses. Just like with colleges, most black colleges, if you notice, they'll have the initials A&M, Alabama A&M, North Carolina A&T. It's A&M and A&T, and that's agricultural and mechanical, agricultural and technology. So those terms were used for black schools because black schools were training vehicles to get black people into the Industrial Revolution. It was trying to teach them how to be very good employees. We have to get out of that mindset of being good employees and learn how to take pride in being good business owners. We have to learn how to be more entrepreneurial.
The solutions is that we need to stop begging the job God to find work for us. The solution is that if black people are going to have work in America again, they're going to have to bring back light manufacturing. We're going to have to create something. We're going to have to make something. And I'm telling you that there are other nations that would help us to do that because they want to see some real money come out of America instead of this fake dollar that's getting ready to go into a complete inflation.
The solution is independence. Independent schools. Anything we need for our survival, we must control. Independent farms, independent agriculture, independent airlines, independent shipping.
We are the only people that don't invest in each other. We used to, but we don't do that anymore. So if you watch Asians, they always put money up for Toyota. Watch them. You see the Chinese right now, they have bus companies, they invest. This is what they do. The Italians do the same thing. We are the only ones that don't do that.
And I'm encouraging black folk to set up consultant firms to teach Europeans how to survive in a depressed, inflated society. Because who better to teach them how to take a potato and feed the community potato soup? Who better than grandma that used to take a couple chicken wings and could feed the whole family? We have lived with an inflated dollar all of our life in America. We have lived in a depression all of our life in America. And yet, as Dr. Maya Angelou says, still we rise. We're still able to smile. We're still able to relate to each other. That's a powerful thing. They need to learn this.
After we saw Dr. King and after we saw Malcolm get assassinated, Patrice Lumumba, Medgar Evers, the 60s, they tried to take care of everybody they could find. That put so much fear in subsequent black leadership that they are still cowards to this day. Which is why I say respectfully, there's not one of them who I could point a young black boy to and say, you know what, you should be like him when you grow up. Not one of them. Because the average black leader today is really not a black leader. He is a deal broker. The job of the black leader is to broker power deals between the structure and the black masses. Let me give you an example. A riot's about to kick out outside. Cops beat down a brother. Brother's about to go and tear up the police district. The leader should do what? Come in, organize it, say, hold on, brothers, before we go there, there's another way we can handle this thing. Let's do this, let's do this, let's do this. In other words, you organize the energy, you redirect it into a direction that is most likely to bring the desired result. They don't do that. They don't redirect the energy. You know what they do? They dissipate the energy. Go back home. Let the law prevail. Let's settle it on election day. You follow me? Let's get some placards and march around the police district. Let's do something that don't mean a damn thing to white folks. This is what they do. Deal brokers. That's all they do. They send them in to dissipate the energy and send you home, and you never hear about the incident again.
People who march are powerless. You don't march for what you want, you take what you want. Everybody knows that. The mafia knows that. You go and you take what you want. You take what you want, you establish your superiority and your seniority over that, and that's yours. You don't go marching for somebody to give you anything. That is insane and inane. We don't do that anymore. That's one thing we could at least learn. Don't go marching for a damn thing anymore. Take what you know is yours, work towards becoming better and understanding how your adversary works. Work towards understanding the tactics of your adversary. Read The Art of War. And read all things having to do with tactics, mental, psychological, as well as physical, as well as military. Understand the way that chess is played. Teach your children how to play chess because it has them working both sides of their brain.
Know thyself. We have to know our history. We have to study. We have to study chemistry and physics and math. We have to learn how to write and read. We have to recapture our history. We have to make Medu-Neter, or what we call hieroglyphs, the classical African language. We have to make Kiswahili the practical spoken language. So if I go to Brazil and there's a brother that speaks Portuguese or a sister that speaks Portuguese, I speak English, we should be able to speak Kiswahili to each other. If I go to Holland, there's a brother or sister that speaks Dutch, I speak English. We should be able to speak to each other in Kiswahili.
Understanding the game and self-respect, meaning, what's in my interest. It's not about hating anybody. It's what's in my interest. Like my ultimate goal objective is not hating white people, not wanting to do to white people what they have done to black and other people of color, but to replace the system of racism, white supremacy with a system of justice so that there can be peace on the planet.
And to understand that we